Hello and welcome to this YouTube channel. So, if you are following this or you are not following, I want to say a few things before we start this second phase of our discussion, which is related to international relations. As you know, if you had visited this channel before, you had watched my videos, you know that this initiative is to complete the current affairs full year current affairs from last 1 year to help you prepare in your examinations which are forthcoming, UPSC prelims or your other civil service exams. So if you know that I had last night I completed full discussion from last 1 year till till the month of Feb. I had completed all the topics now of polity and governance. They were compiled in 12 different videos, and after I will complete these initiatives and I would take few more classes which are left out, which are the recent developments, that would take 1 or 2 classes maximum. So today's from today we will start our discussion about international affairs, international relations, their current affairs, what had happened since the last 1 year, how India dealt with different situations, and what were the improvement in our relations with our country, with our neighboring countries or with other countries, and how would they impact our country, and how would these contributions or developments impact our exams. We would try to discuss it with reference to our exam syllabus, and the main point of this discussion is we would take maximum 4 to 5 or sometimes 6 to 7 topics, and we would try to go in detail. So as you had been through in your exams, you might, when you see the questions, you might be aware of the question, but one thing which we lack, we had not done the depth studies of that topic, so we miss those questions. So my aim is to go to the depth and try to get more information, and whatever important developments had happened since 1 year, I would try to include that in my videos. So without wasting any of your time, we would jump to this important session. And before that, I want to tell you, please, if you are watching these videos, do subscribe this channel, and that would be kind of acknowledgement from your side, as kind of appreciation from your side, as it takes huge time uh, to prepare these videos. I would be very much thankful if you would subscribe to this channel and share it with your friends. So let's move to our first topic. It is about India and Japan relations. Why it was in news? It was because of the Japanese Prime Minister who visited India recently for India-Japan summit meeting. It was held in India. So let's discuss more about the Japanese relationship, and where we share organizations and more about that. So what were the key? Let's go first in detail about the summit which was held when Japanese PM visited India. Let us see what were the key agreements which were signed. In it, first, renewal of memorandum of cooperation in Japanese language, essentially focusing on higher level language learning. And then the second, exchange of notes on Japan International Cooperation Agency loan for 300 billion Japanese yen on Mumbai Ahmedabad high speed railway project. So these were the key agreements which were signed. First, there was a renewal of a memorandum of cooperation in the Japanese language. which essentially focused on higher level language learning. And the second, it was about the Mumbai Ahmedabad high speed railway project, the investment of Japan International Cooperation Agency, which is 3 billion Japanese yen. So let's move forward. Let's go a little bit brief about the cooperation between India and Japan. If we would see, in 1952, we had established the diplomatic relations with the Japan, as in 1947 we got our independence, and then in 1952 we established the diplomatic relationship with the Japan. And when it was, if you remember the economic turmoil, economic situation when during 90s, so Japan was among the few countries that bailed India out of the balance of payment crisis. So here we won't go to these economic concepts when we take up the economic classes. There I would try to explain all the concepts. Here we just give a glance towards how our relationship has improved since years. And in 2014 we abrogated bilateral relations to special strategic and global partnership. Then in 2017, agreement for cooperation in the peaceful uses of nuclear energy entered into force. And then in 2021, agreement concerning reciprocal provisions of supplies and services between defense forces of both countries. And during 2022, we celebrated 70th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations. So this is a brief glance about India-Japan relationship. Here, majorly questions won't be asked from such topics in your prelims, but this is very important for your mains. When we consider the mains exam, such information is needed there if you have to write the question related to India-Japan relations and all that stuff. Here we have to write these, we need to write these important points. So let's move our next subtopic of this India-Japan relation, and here we have to discuss what is the significance of Japan for India, how it plays its role in developing our economy, and how does it help India to improve in different dimensions. So first we should know that economic and commercial relationship, how it is between India and Japan. The signing and implementation of India-Japan Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement in 2011 accelerated economic relations. In 2011, we signed the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with Japan, and it helped in accelerating our economic relations. And also Japan's bilateral trade, which we need to know, with India totaled 20.57 billion during financial year 2021 and 22. During the financial year 2021, our bilateral trade with the Japan was 20.57 billion, and also it was 12th largest trading partner for India in 2020. And also India's primary, if we know what are the primary exports to Japan, what we export to Japan have been petroleum products, chemicals, element compounds, non-metallic mineral ware, clothing and accessories. So here one point, which is petroleum products. Here we usually get confused in our exams when such question comes, because we know when we see the petroleum and we are exporting something related to petroleum and we are exporting it, so it is very, if we don't have the proper knowledge about that concept or about that thing, we try to be over smart here, that petroleum, we don't have that much petroleum resources, and we would usually think that this statement is wrong. But we should know that it is about the petroleum products, and India is primary exporter of the to Japan, as they export petroleum products, chemical elements. So we should know that this statement might come in exam. This statement may come in exam. Such statements do come in exams. And also India's what are the primary imports from Japan? They are machinery, electrical machinery, iron and steel products, plastic materials, non-ferrous metals and etc. Let's move. So first, as you know, my way of discussing is, first we would try to understand the slide, and my main point is to help you remember the most from this discussion. First, we should know that the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, it was signed in 2011. Then what was it? What is this point? It is mostly useful for your mains exam. We should know that 20.757 billion during financial year 21-22, and we can also write there that in if any question comes in relation with the India-Japan relation, we can write that in during 2020 it was the 12th largest trading partner for India. And also, what are the primary exports? We should know that petroleum products which we export to Japan, chemical elements, chemicals, compounds, non-metallic mineral ware, clothing, and accessories. And what are the primary imports from Japan? They are machinery, electric machinery, iron, steel products, plastic material, non-ferrous metals, and etc. Let's move to the slide. What is rings? And also here we have to discuss about official development assistance. As it is mentioned here, India is the largest recipient of Japanese official development assistance that has been channeled into priority areas like power, transportation, environment projects, and projects related to basic human needs. So here the Japan's official development assistance, they give this assistance to different countries, and India is the largest recipient of this. And this is channeled, this is used in various areas, like for example for power, transportation, in developing transportation, in for environment projects and projects related to basic human needs. We need these official development assistance from Japan. And also development of India's northeast, for the development of India's northeast, Japan is the only country whom India has actively invited to help in socio-economic development projects. So for the development of northeast of India, India has actively invited Japan, which is the only country to help in socio-economic development projects. So Japan is the only country which India has invited to help them in developing northeast via social or economic ways. And also the India-Japan Act-East Forum was held in March 2022 for the sixth time, and it focused on connectivity projects in northeast India. And since these were about the economic developments, we have defense relations with them also. For example, defense and security partnership forms an integral pillar of the bilateral ties, which we know. Bilateral defense cooperation is facilitated between the India and Japan by 2.2+2 defense and foreign ministerial dialogue. So there is a highest level dialogue between India and Japan for defense and security. Highest level of partnership forms are there. We have 2+2 dialogue between India and Japan, where highest level officials of the government interact and they develop the relation. And also in 2014, Japan joined exercise Malabar, naval exercise between US and India, as a permanent member. We should, if such questions do come in exam, so we should know Japan is also the member of Malabar exercise since 2015. It was a naval exercise between India and so what are the shared concerns? Since Japan and India, they are very much similar in a way, their concerns are very much similar in many ways. For example, their concerns related to China. India and Japan share concerns about China that has been the key driver of relationship. For example, it is said enemy is a friend, or we can say, if you both have here, it is not that Japan is our enemy, but China is our strategical enemy. We have confronted China many times. We have border disputes with them, and similarly, Japan has same disputes with them. So it binds our relation together by sharing such concerns. And also India has a long, as I already said it, India has long unsettled border with China that is subject to periodic tensions. Japan, similarly, Japan has along with Australia, both countries launched a supply chain resilience initiative, which is SCRI, in 2021 to reduce the dominance of China in the Indo-Pacific region. So this question about supply chain resilience initiative, it was launched in 2021. Along who were the launching members? We should know that it was Japan, India, and Australia to reduce the dominance of China in the Indo-Pacific region. So this question might come in your exam. This is UPSC type question here about supply chain resilience initiative. When it was initiated in 2020, launched in 2021. For it is by members, it's who launched this initiative. It was Australia, Japan, and India. About maritime cooperation, both are strategically aligned in the Indo-Pacific and have thus expanded their cooperation in multilateral organizations like Quad, where we have 4 members: US, UK, Australia, and US is their member. We have Japan, India, and UK. So these we have these members which we share these organizations with Japan. For example, we have Quad. Then we have Japan plans to integrate Northeast India with the rest of the Southeast Asia under a plan of a free and open Indo-Pacific. Connectivity looks beyond Northeast India and encompasses Bhutan, Nepal, and Bangladesh. The regional connectivity umbrella also involves collaborations on projects like Asia-Africa Growth Corridor, which both India and Japan wanted to collaborate in. So in this slide, what we learned is about the shared concerns between India and Japan, about China, how they try to overcome the Chinese influence. We learned about supply chain resilience initiative, who launched it. It was launched by Australia, India, and Japan. We learned about the organizations which we are in. For example, Quad. In it we have Australia, we have United States, we have India and Japan. And then we had Japan plans to integrate Northeast India with the rest of Southeast under the plan of free and open Indo-Pacific connectivity. Then we have regional connectivity umbrella, also involves collaborations on projects like Asia-Africa Growth Corridor. So we have also cultural relations. India and Japan have had a strong cultural ties from centuries due to the spread of Buddhism through East Asia. As we know, the most Japanese people follow the religion of Buddhism, and we also know that Buddhism originated from India. So we have huge cultural relations through this way. Other areas of cooperation are include India-Japan digital partnership. We have disaster risk reduction, skill development, bilateral science and technological cooperation, healthcare, and sister state and sister city corporations. These are other while we cooperate together. So let's see what are the concerns regarding our relationship. We have first one, if we would try to give it a heading, it is untapped economic potential. For example, ties between the two on the economic front are way below their potential. If we will see, China accounted for 24% of Japan's imports and 22% of its exports, while India accounts for 0.8% of Japan's imports and 1.7% of its their exports. So there is a huge difference how much we trade with Japan and how much China trades with Japan. So there is an untapped economic potential. There is a huge potential between India and Japan in trade, but that is very much low right now, but we can increase it. As compared to China, we are very low. And also, while comprehensive economic partnership agreement did boost bilateral trade, it has expanded India's trade deficit with China. Since comprehensive. It did help in our bilateral trade, but our trade deficit with China, with the Japan, has increased. Also about trade deficit, we will discuss it in our economic session. So please don't worry if I would exclude some concepts here. And some factors that hinder service exports from India include linguistic barriers, Japan's unique industrial organization system, lengthy visa procedures, etc. Some other factors are, as mentioned in this line, is linguistic barriers, as we have different language, Japan's, lengthy visa procedures, etc. And also other factors that limit foreign direct investment flows include trade facilitation, poor infrastructure, issues related to customs, poor logistics. These are other factors which limit our trade. So these are few concerns related to India-Japan relation in economic way. And others are our disagreement over Russian invasion of Ukraine, while India did not, in a way, they kept quiet regarding Russia's invasion on Ukraine. At the same time, Japan opposed Russia. So there is a disagreement regarding that. If we would read it in a better way, both countries differed on their responses to Russian invasion of Ukraine, while Japan has taken tough measures against Russia, including sanctions against Russian entities. India argued for a return of diplomacy to resolve the conflict. And also about Asia-Africa Growth Corridor susceptible. When launched in 2000, it was launched in 2017 to attract a lot of attention. It looked like an alternative to China's Belt and Road Initiative, but there is no concrete achievement in it yet. So there are many concerns related to our relationship. So, what is the road ahead? What we should do? First, the writer here says that re-examining our comprehensive economic partnership agreement to ensure utilization. For example, on a large scale, stakeholders on both sides need to be made more aware through private and government efforts. The stakeholder, the businessman, the company man, they should be made more aware about the information. Some steps include looking for synergies and ways to work together, as well as focusing on new market and needs. Then we have overcoming non-tariff barriers. Since we know that to any trade agreement we have tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers. In tariff barriers we include our taxes and all that stuff. In non-tariff barriers, which include logistics, visa issues, transportation, and all that. So we have to overcome these non-tariff barriers. To emphasis should be on improving cooperation with the relevant Japanese agencies and empowering the export industry to adhere to prescribed quality standards. Japan can also help to facilitate technologies that will improve the sanitary and phytosanitary standards of Indian products. And also attracting Japanese investors. Government should continue its efforts to further improve all ease of doing business parameters. We should improve all ease of doing business parameters, by which we should reduce these taxes by which we can attract the Japanese investors. Improved logistics, a more open, stable, and consistent trade policy regime, and a centralized single window clearance system will increase India's attractiveness for Japan's investors. And also, we should rethink about Africa Asia growth corridor. By balancing strategic and business interests, there is a need to revise the AAGC to make it more attractive and beneficial. So, a lot of rethinking is to be done. Money, there are the government has to take up this position. They have to make our markets more attractive for the Japanese investors. We have to overcome the non-tariff barriers which come in our trade agreements. We have to ensure the quality of our product, and we have to ensure about sanitary and phytosanitary standards of our products. So this was about India and Japan relationship. Let's move to the next topic. It is about India and Australia. So let's see why it was in news. It was in news because during first India-Australia annual summit, both sides had extensive deliberations to further strengthen their cooperation. So it was the first India-Australia summit where both sides held extensive deliberations to further strengthen their cooperation. So same as when we discussed about India-Japan relation, we will go in the same way. We will try to get the more information from here. We would try to understand this relationship in depth. Let us see what other slides bring to us. So more about news. Here both countries they discussed finalization of a comprehensive trade deal and a migration pact as well as ways to boost defense cooperation. So we are inching towards the finalizing the comprehensive trade deal and migration pact as a way to boost defense cooperation, and also exchanged memorandum of understanding for cooperation in supports and audiovisual co-production, exchanged terms of reference for India-Australia Solar Task Force, letter of intent between Atal Innovation Mission and Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, and also earlier India and Australia signed a framework mechanism for mutual recognition of qualification to help ease the mobility of students and professionals between the two countries. So here in this slide, what we have to remember is that what they discussed during this summit, they discussed finalization of the comprehensive trade, which we are inching towards our comprehensive trade agreement, trade deal with Australia, and we also discussed about the migration pact. Then we exchanged the memorandum of understanding for cooperation in supports and audiovisual co-production, and also exchanged terms of reference for Indian Australia Solar Task Force, letter of intent between Atal Innovation Mission and Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, and also we had signed a framework mechanism for mutual recognition of qualification, which will help ease the mobility of students and professionals between the two countries. So this is very much important that mutual recognition of the qualification should be there, and this way it will help the students and the professionals between the two countries. Let us see areas of cooperation between India and Australia. For example, first let's move to the trade and economic relation. India is Australia's ninth largest trading partner and Australia is India's 17th largest trading partner. So such questions do come in exam. They are often asked, so we should know that if any question related to Australia's trade comes in our exam, we should know that India is Australia's ninth largest trading partner and Australia is India's 17th largest trading partner. What are the main exports to Australia? They are refined petroleum, pharmaceutical products, pearls and gems, jewelry made up of textile articles. So as we discussed in Japanese, what we export to them, majorly there was petroleum products, refined petroleum products, where there we had their chemicals, we have non-metals also, but here we have different. What are they are petroleum, refined petroleum we export to Australia. We export pharmaceutical products, we, for example, medicines. During COVID-19 times we helped many countries. We were called the pharmacy of the world then. So if any such question comes, we should know that we lead the pharmaceutical industry in a way, and if we don't know the point we can write it blindly. There we export pharmaceutical products. You may get something that mostly that would be right. And pearls and gems, jewelry we export there, and made up textile articles. And what are India's major imports? It is coal, copper ores and concentrates, copper ores and concentrates, natural gas, ferrous and non-ferrous waste and scrap, etc. So here if we see that India imports coal from Australia, and we know that we are able to produce huge amount of coal in India itself. Why do we import coal from other countries? its answer is that our coal is not of that good quality, as that's why we import it from other countries. In 2022, Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement was signed, under which both are providing duty-free access to a huge number of goods and relaxing norms to promote trade in services. So we should know that in 2023-22, Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement was signed, under which we provide duty-free access to a huge number of goods and relaxing norms to promote trade in services. And also regional and multilateral cooperation. Australia supports India's candidature in expanding UN Security Council. Both are members of India and Australia. They are members of G20 Commonwealth and Indian Ocean Rim Association for Regional Cooperation, ASEAN Regional Forum, ISA CDRI, and have participated in the East Asia Summit. So these are the corporations, organizations which we are in, which we both are in. Here CDRI is Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. So both countries have also been cooperating as members of the 5 interested parties in the WTO's context. So further, Australia supports India's membership of APEC and Nuclear Suppliers Group. What in Australia, it supports India's membership in Asia Pacific Economic Corporation, which is abbreviated as APEC, and Nuclear Suppliers Group. Defense and security. Australia and India upgraded bilateral relationship from strategic partnership in 2009 to comprehensive strategic partnership in 2020. And also both countries conclude mutual logistic support agreements during the virtual summit in June 2020, and 2+2 ministerial dialogue was held in September 2021. And also the geostrategic position of India and Australia on the Indian and Pacific Oceans has helped with the convergence of interests. Apart from China's assertiveness, multiple challenges of maritime security, piracy, smuggling, illegal ocean-borne trade, securities also unite both countries. So these are the points which are common to India and Australia. And also both countries support a rule-based international order and are seeking to forge regional institutions in the Indo-Pacific which are inclusive and promote further economic integration. So this is how our relationship with Australia is going on. These are the same how we contribute, how we support each other. How Australia is supporting India's membership of Asia Pacific Economic Forum, Economic Cooperation and Nuclear Suppliers Group. How defense and security, Australia and India's how they upgraded their bilateral relationship from strategic partnership since 2009 to comprehensive strategic partnership in 2020. 2+2 ministerial dialogue was held in September 2021. And also the geostrategical positioning of India and Australia on the Indian Pacific Ocean has helped with the convergence of interests, as both countries have same problems. For example, China's assertiveness, then security challenges we have from different countries. We have piracy challenges in our Indian Ocean. We have smuggling, illegal ocean-borne trade, securities, etc. These challenges unite us with Australia. So let's see further where we share our defense relationship and where we help each other. We have defense relationship which encompasses almost every major area of partnership. For example, strategic dialogues, military exercises, for example, Malabar exercise, which we studied in Japanese relationship. We have Ozindex, etc. We have military to military exchanges and defense, commerce, and technological cooperation. Both countries are integral part of Quad as we discussed it, and we engage in trilateral groupings like the India Australia Indonesia and India Japan Australia dialogues, as well as in the supply chain resilience initiatives. And also Australia India Indo Pacific Ocean Initiative partnership in particular is focused on maritime cooperation in Indo Pacific. We have people to people ties. India is one of the top source of skilled immigrants to Australia, as per the 2021 census, and also around 9.76 lakh people in Australia reported their ancestry as Indian origin, making them second largest group of overseas born residents in Australia. So we have huge people to people ties there, and also our diaspora is very huge. And also other areas of cooperation, we have civil nuclear cooperation agreement signed in 2014. We have digital economy, cyber security, and critical and emerging technologies, mining and processing of critical and strategic minerals, etc. So uh, we have other areas of cooperation. We have shared areas of cooperation in nuclear core. We have civil nuclear, we cooperate in nuclear energy, for example, civil nuclear corporation, digital economy. We cooperate their cyber securities, critical and emerging technologies, mining and processing of critical and strategic minerals, and etc. So we had huge cooperation between India and Australia. Now let's see what are the challenges in our relationship. We have difference in approaches towards Indo-Pacific. While both have embraced the logic of the Indo-Pacific, the importance of Indo-Pacific, but we have the differences which will remain. For India, the entire Indian Ocean will take precedence, while for Australia it will be the southwest Indian Ocean only. It is immediate north and vast stretches of the South Pacific. So we have differences in approach towards Indo-Pacific, which is important for us. For us, whole Indian Ocean is important, and for them, only immediate north and vast stretches of the South Pacific are important for them. While for Australia, it is only southwest Indian Ocean, it is immediate north and vast stretches of the South Pacific. They are strategically important for Australia, and their focus will remain only to that area. While for India, our full focus is on Indian Ocean. So there is a difference in approach towards Indo-Pacific. And also we have asymmetric priorities. For example, for Australia, challenge of China relates to its own politics, society, and economy, as well as the security of its wider region. For India, for us, China is a direct military threat on a hotly contested border. So our approach, our priorities are different. Our for the if we will consider China, it is our very near neighbor, and we had confronted the Chinese or many times. So our approach towards China is different, and for Australia, it is different. So there is asymmetry. Then also Australia is significantly more dependent on the United States for its security and on China for its prosperity than India. Australia depends more on US and China as compared to India, and also India by contrast is much less integrated with United States security structures and much less integrated with the supply chains linked to mainland China. Also in Australia, frustration persists related to India's ability or unwillingness to seamlessly integrate with US alliance-led operational protocols and procedures. So Australia that India's unwillingness fully to fully integrate with the US alliance-led operational protocols and procedures. It frustrates Australia as India has its independent foreign policy. We had our relations with Russia also, which is uh, the strategic enemy of US. We have our relations with the many countries which US does not like, and had our we don't have that much good relations with the US friendly countries which are very money. For example, Pakistan is one of that. Uh, if we would say that Pakistan and US share good relation, but our relation with Pakistan is not that good. So this frustrates in a way. Australia is getting frustrated by Australia wants India to have that and that kind of relation with the US as they are having itself. So it kind of frustrates Australia. So other concerns are we have mismatched capabilities, although there are certain parallels and complementaries. Australian and Indian naval forces have significantly different capabilities. Also, cooperation between shared platforms is difficult in the absence of secure communications. And also issues faced by Indian diaspora. There have been reports of discrimination in Australia. Many Indian students in past were killed there because of the racism. So these issues do exist, and also trade deficit in financial. If we should know that in financial year 2022, India had a trade deficit of US 8.5 billion with Australia, with US 8.3 billion in exports and 160.8 billion in imports. So this much trade deficit we have with Australia. So let's move to our uh, last important topic which we have to discuss. It is ops. It is what we will discuss what this grouping is about, what is their aim, and for its members, and we will see how it is important for us in our exams. So we should know that OX, it is US, UK and Australia. They unveiled why it was in news. They unveiled details of plan to create a new fleet of nuclear powered submarines. If you are currently reading the newspapers, it was recently at 2 days or yesterday it was in news that nuclear powered submarines were uh, uh, transferred to Australia from US. It was in news. So related to this we have to discuss, and let's see what this article brings. As about OX, it was announced in 2021. It is a new three-way strategic defense alliance between Australia, UK, and the US. Its aim is to boost defense capabilities, accelerate technological integration, and expand the industrial capacity of all three nations. So this is its aim to boost defense capabilities, accelerate technological integration, and industry to boost and to expand the industrial capacity of the three nations. We should know that AUKUS partnership, it is composed of two pillars which we would discuss in the next slide. For facilitating sharing of critical technology, a legally binding tripartite agreement known as the Exchange of Novel Propulsion Information Agreement was signed in 2021. Such questions may be asked. The UPSC can frame it like that: Exchange of Novel Propulsion Information Agreement (ENNPIA) is associated with what? So we should know that it was signed in 2021 and it is associated with AUKUS. Who are the signatories? It was Australia, UK, and US. So let us see what are the two pillars which the AUKUS is composed of. Pillar 1, it it is about trilateral efforts to support Australia in acquiring conventionally armored non-armored nuclear-powered submarines. We should remember that these are not nuclear submarines which are for army use or security use. They are nuclear powered, so there is a difference. They are not launched with nuclear weapons. It is only powered by the nuclear, so that it can remain underwater for a longer uh, time. to help in securing the Indo-Pacific, which we already discussed. This is the main aim of it. And the pillar 2, it focuses on expediting cooperation in critical technologies, including cyber capabilities, artificial intelligence, and etc. These are the two pillars which we should know. Pillar 1, to acquiring conventional armored nuclear powered submarine to Australia, and second, to focus on expediting cooperation in critical technologies, which include cyber capabilities, artificial intelligence, and etc. So, what are the implications of AUKUS? Shifting US priorities in Asia. US, since we know that when US withdrew from Afghanistan, it was framed as a loss uh, that caused US a loss of credibility regarding its role in regional security. So, thereafter, AUKUS is seen as a US's it is strong commitment to the security of Indo-Pacific region, and also re-establish UK's strategic footprint. After UK abandoned its security responsibilities east of Suez in late 1960s, it had become marginal to Asian security all these decades. AUKUS will renew its claim for a long-term role in Indo-Pacific security. It is mostly about regaining their respect. So this forum, this will help them in regaining that respect which which the US lost in Afghan, and UK is lost during 1960s. And also, this was from my personal point of view, so please don't write it in the exam. I was trying to simplify it for you. And also, we have strategic implications for Indo-Pacific. By strengthening the defense capabilities of Australia, AUKUS will aim to achieve the vision of free, open, resilient, and inclusive Indo-Pacific, which I already said to you that those submarines, which nuclear-powered submarines, they will help Australia in securing the Indo-Pacific area. And also model for similar collaboration, these templates may be used to build the defense capabilities of other nations in the region. It would go a long way to contain the Chinese expansionist policy and thereby bring stability and peace in the region. Also, we should know that AUKUS promotes deeper information and technology sharing, fostering deeper integration of security and defense related science, technology, industrial base, and supply chains. And also, AUKUS has reinvigorated the idea of Anglosphere that speaks of the enduring geopolitical bond between the US, UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. Also, along with Code, Five Eyes, and AUKUS, AUKUS can be viewed yet another indicator of the primary of the US-Australia strategic depth across the Indo-Pacific. Here I want to share some information about Five Eyes. It is an intelligence alliance consisting of the US, UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand uh, to spy on the world. And about UNCLOS Treaty, it was signed by Australia, New Zealand, and United States, came into force in 1952. And also strategic depth across about strategic depth, I would explain it by an example. For example, uh, if India and Pakistan will go for a war, and Pakistan has its strategic depth in Afghanistan, they have that. By strategic depth, if I would have to explain it in a layman's language, I would say the control over other regions. They have that control over Afghanistan. If Pakistan will get defeated on the battleground, they have that depth where they can counter India. So similarly, this strategic depth for Australia and New Zealand, Australia and US are these areas: New Zealand, uh, uh, Canada, and for Australia, New Zealand is for Australia, and for US we can say they have huge strategic depth in Canada and other states. So this was in a nutshell about strategic depth about Five Eyes, US, UK, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, and about UNCLOS. It was the agreement which was signed. It was a treaty which was signed between Australia, New Zealand, and United States. We should know about that. So, what are the concerns related to ox? Here it lacks there is a lack of clarity. There is no clear definition or a reason for the ox. So what critics say, there is a lack of clarity about ox strategic purpose and how ox narrative would be rolled out to allies, partners, and adversaries. How the partners of Australia or US see that there is a lack of clarity about ox, and also all three countries say that ox will stabilize the Indo-Pacific, but how it would stabilize that, it is not explained in a proper way. It undermines nuclear non-proliferation treaty. What critics say, ox requires Australia to become the first non-nuclear weapon state to remove materials from the inspection of the International Atomic Energy Agency. Critics argue that ox undermines the spirit and objectives of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And also, opposition by China. Experts have raised concern that it may provoke China to act more aggressively in disputed areas like the South China Sea and the East China Sea. China and Russia have made a concerted efforts to undermine ox in international bodies. They are trying to undermine ox in different international organizations. Also widened divide in transatlantic relationship. Ox has also widened the divide in the transatlantic relationship between the US and Europe. We have secrecy surrounding the ox negotiations have raised concerns about legitimacy of US allies system in Europe, where Australia had scrapped a diesel powered submarine agreement with France in favor of ox, undermining strategic partnership between France and Australia. It is diesel powered submarine which they scrapped with France. And also intelligence sharing and sovereignty concerns. Australian critics have questioned whether their country is ceding too much sovereignty given that their most powerful military tool is deeply embedded in an alliance structure. So they even the critics in Australia do argue about ox that we are ceding our sovereignty to the alliance structures. So they think that it is too too much for them. So how this ox and how it has its relation with India? How does we see it, and what are the concerns for India? Let us discuss about it. What is the significance of India and ox? They come as we know that it complements the Quad in geostrategic arena. It can be a game changer alliance for Quad as well by increasing the cumulative capacity of Quad to deal with China as a common threat. Leveraging ox would strengthen Quad to keep the Indo-Pacific region free, open, and inclusive. And also strategic collaboration with France. It also provides a window of opportunity of strategic collaboration with France and deepening trust with European nations. It would help India to develop their collaboration with the European nations to deepen their trust with European nations, as there is little concern for European nations regarding ox. It may help India to strengthen the bond between India and European nations. So, what are the concerns here? Concerns are erosion of India's regional influence. India's regional as we are nuclear power, it would erode if Australia is given these nuclear powered submarines. Nuclear power is given to Australia, it would erode our influence. There is a concern over possibility of erosion of Indian regional preeminence in eastern Indian Ocean with the crowding of nuclear attack submarines in the future. Money increase Chinese aggressiveness. It may increase Chinese aggressiveness. Ox could push China into a assuming a more adventurous posture by deploying more warships and submarines in the eastern Indian Ocean. Critics argue that AUKUS could push India-China maritime dynamics into a negative spiral, and it also does not mitigate the strategic threat India faces in the Himalayas. It may shift balance of power in Indo-Pacific as AUKUS partners expand cooperation in advanced capabilities. Balance of power in the Indo-Pacific could shift in ways that India has not entirely accounted for, and also impact on it could have its impact on Quad, as critics argue that AUKUS diminishes the value of and usefulness of the Quad. So these are few concerns which India sees with the AUKUS, and these are few significances between India and AUKUS. Let's move to our last topic of today's. It is about Doha political declaration. It was the fifth United Nations conference on the least developed countries, uh, concluded with the adoption of the Doha political declaration by the world leaders. What it was the fifth United Nations conference on the least developed countries, which concluded with the Doha political declaration by the world leaders. Let us see about the Doha political declaration. Let us discuss about least developed countries. Let us go topic about the declaration. Political declaration welcomed Doha program of action for least developed countries. That was adopted at first part of the conference held in 2022 in New York. Second part of conference was held in Doha under theme from potential to prosperity. So political declaration welcomed Doha program of action for least developed countries that was adopted. First, it was adopted in two phases. In first part of conference which was held in New York in 2020, and second part of conference was held in Doha, Qatar, under the theme from potential to prosperity. Through this declaration, representatives recognized that despite some positive results, progress fell short of goals set out in the Istanbul Programme of Action for Least Developed Countries for the decade of 2021 to 2011 to 2020. Istanbul Programme of Action declaration, which was held in 2011. So this declaration, Doha declaration, it recognized that it fell short, and also the and also Istanbul Program of Action recognizes that least developed countries represent an enormous human and natural resources potential for world's economic growth, welfare, and prosperity. For least developed countries, the Istanbul Program of Action, it recognizes that the least developed countries, they represent enormous human and natural resources which are potential for world economic growth, welfare, and prosperity. This Doha Declaration also requested the Secretary General to ensure the full mobilization and coordination of all parts of the United Nations system to facilitate coordinated implementation of Doha Program of Action. So it is mainly about the development inclusiveness of the least developed countries. So here we had discussed about Istanbul Program of Action, how it fell short in getting more least developed countries, in favoring them, and in representing them, and how Istanbul Program of Action how it recognized that the enormous human and natural resources potential these least developed countries have for economic growth, welfare, and prosperity. And also this declaration requested the Secretary General of UN to ensure the full mobilization and coordination of all parts of the UN nation systems to facilitate coordinated implementation of Doha program of action. Let us see more about Doha program of action. It manifests a new generation of renewed commitments between the least developed countries and their developed partners, including the private sector, civil society, and governments at all levels. So it manifests commitments between the least developed countries and their developing partners. Development partners, which include private sector, civil society, or governments at all levels. It is a 10-year plan from 2022 to 2031 to put world's 46 most vulnerable countries back on the track to achieving the UN mandated sustainable development goals. So its aim is to put these least developed countries to achieve the UN mandated sustainable development goals. In it, we have mostly 46 most vulnerable countries. Now let us discuss about least developed countries. Least developed countries are low-income countries confronting severe structural impediments development to sustainability and other things. They are highly vulnerable to economic and environmental shocks and have low level of human assets. These least developed countries. These are currently 46 countries, which are from 46 countries. 33 are African, 9 are Asian, 1 is Caribbean, and 3 are Pacific. On the list of LDCs, which is reviewed, they are reviewed every 3 years by the Committee for Development, a subsidiary body of the United Nations Economic and Social Council. So we should know that Committee for Development, they review these least developed countries every 3 years. It is a subsidiary body of United Nations Economic and Social Council. And also least developed countries identification criteria. This Committee for Development make recommendations on the inclusion and graduation of eligible countries using the following criteria. Let us see what are the criteria. Gross national income per capita, that provides information on the income status and the overall level of resources available to a country. What is the gross national income? It is one of the criteria for CDP to recognize a least developed country. Then human asset index, it is composed of 6 indicators grouped into a health and education sub-index, which we will discuss in next slide. Then we have economic and environmental vulnerable index composed of 8 indicators. It is also grouped into an economic and environmental sub-index. Let us see what are these human asset index. In health index, we have under 5 mortality rate. Their mortality rate is under 5. Prevalence of stunting in children. Then we have maternity mortality ratio. What is their maternity? If that is too high, then they are included. Then in education index, we have to see the gross secondary school enrollment ratio. What is that? We have to see adult literacy rate and gender parity index for gross secondary school enrollment. What is the gender parity? How many girls are enrolling in the secondary school education or with respect to the boys? And similarly, in economic and environmental vulnerability index, we see economic vulnerability index. Here we have share of agriculture, forestry, fisheries in GDP. What is the share of agriculture in GDP? How high it is? What is the share of forestry, fisheries, and remoteness and landlockedness? Is the country landlocked? By landlocked, we mean that the country is bordered or surrounded by other countries. They don't have any direct access to seas or ocean. Then we have merchandise export concentration, then instability of exports of goods and services, and environmental vulnerability index. It includes share of population in a low elevated coastal zone, share of population living in dry lands, instability of agricultural production, victims of disasters. So these are economic and environmental vulnerability index and human assets vulnerability index. So why we discussed that? Because these are the criteria For CDP to include Committee for Development to include a country as least developed country. So if we would recap it, it is gross national income of a country is one of the criteria. Then human asset index is another, and economic and environmental vulnerability index is another. So in human assets index we have health index and education index. In health index we have under 5 mortality rate, prevalence of stunting, height of the kid, it is about malnutrition. Then we have maternal mortality rate. Then in education index we have gross secondary school enrollment ratio, adult literacy rate, gender parity index for gross secondary school enrollment. Similarly, in economic and environmental vulnerability index we have economic vulnerability index and environmental vulnerability index. So these points which we already discussed. So let's see what are the initiatives taken to support least developed countries. Here we have trade related international support measures. These include preferential market access for goods and services and service suppliers, special treatment regarding obligations under World Trade Organization rules and certain regional agreements. They are given special treatment under WTO, special treatment given in preferential market access for goods and services. Then we have financial and technical assistance. For example, United Nations Development Programme, the primary criteria for allocation of UNDP's core resources are per capita income and population. It is the primary criteria for allocation of UNDP's core resources are per capita income and population. And also UNCTAD supports least developed countries to achieve structural economic transformation, increase productive capacity, reduce poverty, and build resilience to adverse factors. Then, then also we have LDCs in international forums. Support measures are in place to help them participate in international forums like caps and discounts on contributions to UN budgets, capacity building for negotiations, and etc. We have least developed countries fund. It is enabling least developed countries to prepare for a more resilient future. Funding helps recipient countries reduce their climate change vulnerability in priority sectors and ecosystem. So these are the initiatives which were taken to help least developed countries. For if I would recap it, we have in WTO we have they have special treatment is given to them. We have UNDP, United Nations Development Fund. It is primary criteria for allocation of UNDP's core resources are per capita income and population. Then we have United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. It supports least developed countries to achieve structural economic transformation, increase productive capacity. It helps reduce poverty and build resilience to adverse factors. Then we have LDCs in international forums and least developed countries fund. So these are the initiatives taken to help least developed countries. By this, I complete today's session. I know it was these are very important for your exams. As I had always said that if you don't like my voice, at least go through these PPTs, you know, watch them on the mute, try to understand them. It would definitely help you in exams. And trust me, after I complete full courses after international affairs, I would take up economic sessions. Then after economy I would take up security, and and after economy I would take up ecology and environment, then science and technology. These main 5 subjects I would definitely complete before our exams. And I would want to tell you one thing, that the things which I am discussing here, trust me, if nothing, at least 10 to 20 questions minimum will come in your exams which would be related to these topics. At least 10 to 20, or very less, I would say 20 to 30 questions would come in relation to these topics. So you have to trust me and trust yourself. So go through these topics and try to understand them and recap these. It won't take much time, as these are only 2 months are left for your prelims exams. So what your strategy should be, you should consult these topics, you should try to understand them, because they were the main points of discussion from last 1 year, and go in depth related to these topics. And about this IR initiative, I would take 12 classes including this, and after completing IR, I would take one more class for polity and governance, and one more class for IR, which would contain some small articles in that. So this is all for today. I hope you liked this session. It was helpful for you, and please do appreciate me by liking this video or by subscribing this channel. I would be very grateful to you. It would help me in boosting my confidence, and I would make more videos for you guys. I have in my plans, I would bring the full coaching here on this channel for your main subjects, and for 2025 prelims and mains, I would try to complete all these important subjects from the beginning till end. That would be literally spoon feeding to you guys. And also from 1st July, I would start uh, uh, prelims initiative, in which I would a kind of daily quiz, in which I would try to include 10 to 15 questions every day regarding your exams, which are very important, which would help you understand, prepare for your exams. So till then, till tomorrow, I'm saying you goodbye. Have a nice day, and best of luck to you guys for your exams. Thank you for watching this channel, if you are watching it till here.